Kufyu Beis Halacha Tes. The Mechaber says, Hidlik Ovid Kecham Mataner, Rafa Yisroel. If a guy, we've now, I should introduce it by saying we finished the first 8 halachas we're about pas palta. We now move into the halachas of the next 4 about how you make pas Yisroel. So the Mechaber says, Hidlik Ovid Kecham Mataner, Rafa Yisroel. If a guy lit the fire and the Yid put the food into the fire, or the Yid lit the fire and the guy put the food baked the food. The guy did both. He lit the fire and he put the food on it. But and the Yid came and stoked the coals a drop. It's mutter. Even if he just threw one piece of wood into the fire, I mean, not only did he not stoke the fire a drop, he just threw a little piece of wood into it. He makes all the pas mutter. That the only reason for this is because of a hecker. We'll explain this in a second, and therefore it's mutter. Okay, and we're going to leave the Ramah in Mertzah for next week.
And that's what
That's what the Mechaber says. Yes, and we're going to leave the Ramah for now. We're going to backtrack the drop, and we're going to come back to explain what the Mechaber said. Okay, now this din that we have here, how you make pas Yisroel. It's like the din, so to speak, of how you make pas Yisroel. It comes from the Gemara in the Avodah Zarah. The Gemara gives all kinds of ideas of how you, about what it takes to make food bishul Yisroel. And the Torah, we've mentioned this before, and the Torah is at the beginning of the Simon, and again over here, is a very interesting question. This question is like this. The Gemara about pas Yisroel is on Daf Lamed Hey. That's what the Gemara is on Daf Lamed Hey. Beis Lamed Vav Lamed Aleph. A few blot later, on Lamed Ches, is the Gemara about bishul Yisroel. He says, so how come in the Gemara about bishul Yisroel, this statement that the Gemara that we're having here from Ravina Hilchasa, like a final statement Hilchasa, picks an example of bread. Okay, it's not so clear in the Mechaber, but in the Gemara, it's a case of bread. The guy, or roll, is what he baked. If you want to talk about bishul Yisroel, we finished pas Yisroel 3 blot ago. If you want to talk about bishul Yisroel, why don't you suggest a potato? They didn't have potatoes then. Okay, so say a different kind, take a piece of meat. Why did, of all examples in the world that he had to pick, did he pick a case that was bread? When we're not talking about pot, now our din is here in the middle of Sim Kufya Beis, but the Gemara there is not in Kufya Beis. The Gemara there is in the Gemara of Bishul Akum, which would be like for us Kufya Gimel. So why would you, of all cases to pick, you could have said any case in the world, why did he have to pick a case?
And that's lechem dafka lechem. We're not going smearing with anything or anything.
He's talking about a piece of it. There are other cases in that Gemara that use other foods in it. Foods that need bishul Yisroel. Okay. But why Ravina, who's a hilchos, I'm going to tell you the bottom line, what it is. Why do you pick a case of pasta? Of all cases, this is the Torah's kasha. Okay? This kasha is why the Torah comes up with a very unusual shita. Well, for us, we're very not used to his shita, which is, the Torah says, a piece of bread has on it 2 potential isurim. Too close to him a second. Okay. Has 2 potential isurim on it. Pas Yisroel and bishul Yisroel. Mm-hmm. Pas Yisroel, according to the Torah, means that if a guy needs the dough is usher. Forget about who bakes it. That's what pas Yisroel means. Who creates the dough. Then all foods, bread and non-bread, have another thing called bishul Yisroel. So bread has to go through 2 stages. A yid has to knead it to be pas Yisroel, and a yid has to cook it in order to make it bishul Yisroel. And immediately he says the whole heter of pas palta only goes on the first part. It doesn't work on the second part. The heter of pas palta is just that a yid could knead it, a guy could knead it, but a yid has to bake it anyhow. And the fact that Ravina picked the case of bread is because all foods have that in. So bread is just as good as potatoes or meat or anything else.
Where's the makor for kneading the bread that a guy...
So the Torah holds. That's what the Torah holds.
But where in the Gemara? I don't remember the Gemara.
This is his diak. He's being medayik from the fact that the Gemara could just use bread in the middle talking about bishul Yisroel. So the Torah holds like that. We don't hold like that. Nobody holds like that. No, that's the Torah shita. That the din of pas Yisroel is independent of bishul Yisroel. We understand that pas and bishul Yisroel are the same din, just one relates to bread and one relates to other foods. And the Torah holds that pas, it has a special din that has to be kneaded by a yid, and then all bread, potatoes, everything else has a din called bishul Yisroel that has to be cooked. That's it. Okay, now we're going to see another thing. Another answer, so to speak, to the Torah's question is the Mechaber is going to hold in Kufyud Gimel that the kulas of Ravina that Ravina is talking about don't apply to Bishul Yisrael. These things that we're seeing here, we're going to see in Kufiyat Gimel, the Machaber holds don't apply. So that's like another kind of an answer to why Ravina said his case describing bread is because it only applies to bread. It doesn't apply to potatoes. Those kulas don't apply to potatoes. So the Gemara he can't explain to you why the Gemara brought it 3 blot later, but he's at least explaining to you why, according to him, you'd understand why it says a case of pas instead of it saying a case of a piece of meat or other cases like that the Gemara had. Okay. So now, back to the din. The Gemara said, Ravina says, which is repeated right here in the din, that there's 3 ways to make pas Yisrael. The first is if the guy lit the fire, but the yid cooked it. Okay. Yeah. The second is the yid lit the fire and the guy cooked it. And the third is the guy did the lighting the fire and the cooking, and the yid stoked the coals. Okay, which of these 3 do you think is a bigger chiddush than the other one? Which one would you think of as being the one that of course is bishul? So one's like this: if a yid goes, takes a potato, lights the fire, puts it into the oven, and cooks it, of course it's bishul. Right? So here we're saying you didn't do everything; you missed some of the steps. So which one of them is more of a chiddush that even if the yid missed that step, it's considered b'shul Yisrael? Which is the thing that makes it more?
I think the last step would be the chiddush, even though it's a hecker, the kisem.
Put the kisem on the side for a second. Okay, yes. Do you think that's a chiddush to say that even Hashlachas Kisem? Yeah. The 3 cases of the Gemara, don't get the kisem yet. One is that the yid cooked the food, one is the yid made the fire, and one is that the yid was machat b'kolm, he just stoked the fires.
I would say with the...
What? Stoke the fire. Okay, I shouldn't have asked questions. Between the first 2 cases. No, you're right. Of course, stoking the coals is between the first 2. Okay, let me go more. Between the first 2 cases, if it's more of a chiddush to say the yid has lighting the fire is good enough, or that cooking the food is good enough? Lighting the fire. That's the lit the fire when? When the food is already on the stove? No,
before it. He lit the fire and then lit the oven. He turned the oven on.
And then the guy put the food on. That's one case of the Gemara. This other case of the Gemara is the guy lit the fire and the yid put the food on.
I would say lighting the fire
is more of a chiddush.
Yeah.
Because
the mice is not an actual in the mice of the cooking.
Okay, fine. The Gemara,
we have the machaber who holds that the lechatchila you're supposed to go ahead and...
Okay, good. The Gemara actually says, along the line, the Gemara says it even more dramatically. The Gemara says that if you have a choice between the yid starting the cooking or ending the cooking, the Gemara says ending the cooking, it's more partial that if you end the cooking, it's considered bishul Yisrael, because you finished it or if you made it finished. Cool. So that's the most partial case that's bishul Yisrael. And to say you did even the beginning of the cooking, or sure you just lit the fire, that's less of a that's more of a chiddush that should be considered
less involvement of the cooking.
Okay, fine. Now, of the two of the cases that are here, there are extensions that the Rishonim add to them. Okay, the Gemara said the yid lit the fire, the yid cooked the yid cooked the food, the yid lit the fire, the yid stoked the coals. Okay, and there are 2 extensions from that din. Okay, the case where the yid lit the fire, there's one extension the Rishonim say is that even if the yid didn't light the fire, but the yid lit a fire, and the guy lit a fire from the yid's fire, if the yid didn't light the fire that you're cooking with, but the yid lit a little fire, and the guy took the fire from there and lit another fire from there, what we call eish me'esh, that's also considered the yid's fire.
By pas or by everything?
We're not talking about it. We're going to get to that in Kufiyat. No, we're going to get that in Kufiyat Gimel. This whole din, I'm just saying.
We're talking pas.
This din of eish me'esh is in Kufiyat Gimel, which is to say, but it's an extension of what we're seeing here. The Gemara said it's enough if the yid lights the fire. Mm-hmm. They're saying it's even enough not only that the yid lit the fire, the yid lit a fire from which the guy made this fire. That's also considered that the yid made the fire. Okay, that's an extension of that. Then it's not here in Kufiyat Beis. It's only in Kufiyat Gimel. We'll get to it. Okay. What we want to talk about is the machabers, the extension that the machaber brings. Okay, another extension, which is the Gemara said is if the guy lit the fire and cooked the food and the yid stoked the coals. So the Gemara said that's good enough, and the Rishonim make an extension on that, which is that not only if he stoked the coals, but even if he did what we call Hashlachas Kisem, he didn't even stoke the coals. He did something less than that. Excuse me, that Rishonim say that the Machaber brings it, that's good.
It's a Gemara.
No.
That he walked by and he threw it in there.
It's only a Gemara on the video. But it's,
no, one second. By Rava, the Rava was walking by. After, you know what?
You'll look it up for us. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says if he stoked the coals, that's good enough. And that's the din that says.
He walked by and stoked the coals.
No, it said that he took a piece of, like a chip of wood and he threw it in the fire.
And the Rishonim,
He told me it's a fairy tale, so we're going to have to find out.
the Rishonim,
I know what a fairy tale was.
so let's say what this thing is. But it's an extension.
Okay.
The Gemara just says that you could stoke the coals. The Gemara is going that far, and then what we're saying here in the Mechaber is an extension there. So what is like this? Tosfos right there on the Gemara, and the Rosh also, bring that the implication of the Gemara, not of what I just read to you, but all the parts of the Gemara is... The implication of the Gemaras are that when we say that the Yid stoked the coals, that means he did something that would be helpful in the cooking. Okay? That is to say, it doesn't have to be that it was crucial for the cooking. It doesn't mean that what he did was, without him, you wouldn't have had any food cooked. But he had to do something helpful, and they use an example that a Gemara used before in a different context, which is that the food, without what I did, would have taken 2 hours to cook. Because of what I did, it took an hour to cook. Okay, so what I did wasn't crucial because it would have cooked anyhow. The food would have eventually cooked. But what I did played a role in the cooking of the food. It made the food cook faster. Okay, that's what Tosfos says right there on the Gemara, and the Rosh says it also. The Rosh is more famous as being the Shita that says the Yid, when the Yid participates, he's got to do something that did something meaningful. It made some difference in the food. If what you did doesn't help the food, it's not it. Okay, but the Rosh says he brings that the minig is, and this is what he's arguing against. The Tosfos brings it also that the Rambam says that the Rambam says what we have in our Gemara, what we have in Shulchan Aruch here, which is that when the Gemara says that if you stoke the coals, that makes it bishul or pas Yisroel. He says stoking the coals. We're now reading some words into the Rambam, but stoking the coals doesn't do anything for the food. The food is cooking anyhow. You don't gain anything just by stoking the coals a little bit. What the Gemara means to say is not that if the Yid helps a little bit in the cooking, it's enough. But that the point is the Yid just has to make a hecker. He doesn't have to cook the food. He just has to make a hecker. And he has to show that this food is not mutter unless I participate. And therefore, and once you make the hecker, then it's mutter, even if it doesn't help with cooking the food. Of course, the point of the hecker is that the reason why pas Yisroel or bishul Yisroel is pas akamu, bishul akamu is also is because it makes you feel close to this guy. If you say that I can't eat your food unless I do make a special step, that's like sort of reminding everybody, I can be your neighbor, but I don't get to be your friend. I don't have to be so close to you. So that's exactly the point. So you avoided the issue of the task of chasnus by making this hecker. So the Rambam holds that, again, there's no Gemara that says that it's a hecker, but he holds when the Gemara says that if you stoke the coals, that's enough to make a mutter. It's not because it helps the cooking, but it's just because it serves as a hecker. Okay,
so they disagree with the Rambam?
And the Rosh, the Tosfos doesn't read Rambam, but the Rosh brings the Rambam. Tosfos says this mean that people do. They bring from the Hanhagas Shebein Eretz Yisrael the Bavel, that in Eretz Yisrael in Yerushalmi, they used to hold like this, but the Bavel does not hold like this.
I thought the Bible said he stoked the coals is good.
Yeah, so they understand that stoking the coals means, like the Gemara had said earlier in a different context, that it makes the food cook quicker.
So the coals makes the fire come back up.
Bigger.
That's what the Rambam doesn't mean. How do they know the Rambam doesn't mean exactly what the Gemara means?
Because the Rambam says that the words in Shulchan Aruch are the words quote right out of the Rambam, that even if you threw in wood and it didn't do anything for the cooking, even so, it's only to be a heck of an alma, and therefore it's good enough.
Because for the fact that he brings the Hashlachas Kisem.
Yeah. What? No.
The Gemara does not bring.
Right.
Don't see it. Your Rambam is supposed to say.
She'ein hadav aliyas ela hecker, and even if what you did didn't do anything, he says even though it didn't do anything, it's still good enough. So they bring the Rambam, they say, we don't, that doesn't make any sense. But they say the minig is to do like that. They do bring that the minig is to be samach on this, but they don't hold of it. They say it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So
how does the Rambam get that from
stoking the coals?
Yeah, because by a Shabbos it's special. I mean,
That's considered bishul if you make it. I guess, I don't know. I guess that if the Gemara really meant that you have to cook it in a way that it make a difference, the Gemara could have said so. The Gemara before, there was a Gemara on Amud Aleph that talked about, not about this in a different way, about whether what the person did makes it cook faster or doesn't make it cook faster. Okay, so the Gemara went through such a thing. So why not say that over here when we're talking about how to make it bishul? So I guess that's what it is. Okay. So now, the Rosh is very clear that these are two shittas. They make it very clear that these are two different worlds about what's mutter and asur. So now we look in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch brings this problem. So the Shulchan Aruch is passing, like as we know, that a Hashlachas Kisem is good enough. Okay, now, if you might be tempted, okay, that's the best word I could use, tempted to think that the Shulchan Aruch is making a compromise between the shittas. Okay, because the Shulchan Aruch says he doesn't use the word that we're used to, which is you threw in a kisem. Okay, kisem means like a splinter.
Right.
He says I threw eitz echad. So you might be tempted to think that the word you threw in eitz echad means you didn't throw in a kisem, you threw in a log. Like you did something like really useful to this thing. Okay, but the reason why that is obvious, it's not correct. You can't say that is because, first of all, those words are a direct quote back from the Rambam. Okay, so the Rambam, who's the other sheet, those words are literally plagiarized right out of the Rambam. Okay. Second is the Beis Yosef says that brings a machlokes. He brings this machlokes, and he says since the Rambam says like this and the minhag is like that, and Svara he's correct, therefore I'm passing like the Rambam. Okay. And lastly, is in case you're still not convinced, is that in the next three halachas, each one of the next three halachas, the Mechaber uses the word kisem. Okay. He talks about making a butter by throwing in a kisem. Okay, so that word, that terminology...
If anything, that would be a kasha on the first halacha then. Why doesn't he use the word kisem in the first one?
Because it's quote out of the Rambam. The Rambam is the one who said that if you threw eitz echad, and
he could have wrote
if you would read the word eitz echad, you might be misled to think that the word eitz echad means a log.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I'm telling you, the next three halachas, in each one of them, he brings the word kisem. So don't be misled. And anyhow, it's obviously not true. Okay, now.
Just want to pause for a second.
So all of this would be fine and good, but there's a question that I have, which I don't have an answer to it. Okay? I'm just stuck with this question. Maybe one of you will be able to explain this to me. We just said, there's a machlokes rishonim. The Rosh and the Beis Yosef are very clear that these two shittas are like worlds apart from each other. They bring it that the Bavli holds the swin, the Yerushalmi holds, the Eretz Yisrael holds the swin, and Bavel holds like this. Okay. You open up the Isra Heter. The Isra Heter and Halacha Tes, okay, the Siman Mem Gimel Halacha Tes brings that we hold like the Rambam.
Okay.
I don't know, not exactly word for word from the Mechaber, but basically that we hold like the Rambam. Okay, that's in Halacha Tes. And Halacha Yud he says, Yizar kishem mechate b'gecholin. Be careful when you stir it. She'oiseh hachitui yoel l'saken eish. That stirring should fix up the fire. V'yoel l'maher bishuloi biyad Yisroel, and should make the cooking go faster because of the yid. Well, that sounds like awful like what the Rosh holds. Mm-hmm. When you stoke the mechata a little bit, you have to make sure that you make it go faster. The cooking should go faster. Okay, so if you could really, if you want to take a really big dachit, you could say that all he means is what words he's going to say in a couple of minutes, which is he's going to talk a few lines later about when you have to do this. In a few lines he's going to say that you can't do it when the food is already cooked. You have to do it before it's finished cooking. So you have to do your chitui. Maybe he means that you have to do your chitui while the food still needs to be cooked. But if the food is already finished cooking, then it's too late to do your chitui.
Yeah,
you could say maybe that's what he means. You could say that. It's a big dachshund to say that. It's a big dachshund. But it's worse. It's worse. Because the Taz and the Shach in Kufyud Gimel, okay, in two different places, the Taz and the Shach both bring the Sisra V'Heter as is. Quote, that you should be careful to make sure that your chitui helps out to make the bishul go faster. What is he talking about? We don't hold like that. Okay, we don't hold like that. We hold that you don't have to make the bishul go faster. That's what the Rosh holds. But we hold like the Rambam, that you don't have to make the bishul go faster. All you have to do is make a hecker. You don't have to do a blessed thing for the food. It doesn't have to get any quicker. Doesn't have to, think about it. Putting a kisem, as we all know, you're not going to do anything to the cooking. Doesn't make not a second.
You don't like after older. I wasn't in the rush.
No, we don't all like it. We don't pass like that. So why are they bringing? Isn't that in Halacha Tes brings something like the Rambam, and then Halacha Yud says make sure you do it in a way that the cooking goes faster.
Is there a chiluk between afiyah and bishul lahalacha that maybe
that Hashlachas Kisem should not work?
Should not work by bishul, and Halacha Yud is talking dafka by afiyah. Needs to be more machmer by bishul.
Maybe.
I don't know. I got to look at the.
Okay.
I'll look at the Yisroel Heter. Where's Simeon? Where's it called? Sharman. Okay.
The gather of this hecker is at least it should be a hecker that might possibly do something and add something in. Nobody's going to say a hecker is pull out a piece of wood.
Okay, let's
say it. So it's a hecker. You got to do something.
Okay,
you got
that's
to
correct.
a thing on your head next to the fire.
Hecker's a reminder.
The surah of the hecker is to do something here.
Okay.
So you can't do a chitui, you just shove coals around and that has no relationship to actually stoking it up.
So you're saying
you have to do something to stoke it up. That's what
so you're saying if I would, let's say, just move coals around, like you're saying. I move coals around in the fire, move coals around in the oven, but they had no meaning. If I just move the coal from the left side to the right side, that wouldn't be the hecker. The hecker has to be, let's say, to make the fire bigger. Now, even though...
Achitui helps.
Wait a second. Even though the food will cook, it was going to cook in 20 minutes, and it's going to still cook in 20 minutes, but Lamaisa is the fire got a little bit bigger. It did something towards the, at least in theory, towards the cooking.
In theory, that's
I threw in a kisem into the fire, so the kisem that I threw
In theory, it makes cooking half a second faster.
of course, it's a joke, but at least, if this twig would be not this big, it would be this big, it would have made a difference. So at least it has the context. It looks like I'm making it cook quicker.
Right.
Okay. But if I did it like you said, I just moved things from the left side to the right side. I turned the oven around. And I didn't do anything, then it wouldn't work.
But that's the same smart. No, because they smart. Just like my Maisa Chitui, right? If I would throw in a piece of a thing, even though theologically, whatever you want to say, it's not gonna do anything. But if I had a big piece of air, same thing. If I'm stirring it around, it depends how I stir it around. If I would stir it around the coals this way, then hypothetically it would have cooked quicker. So I'm just saying that you can't.
If I take a coal and I move from this side to this side, so you can't say that I stoked the coals.
Why not? Lamaisa, I'm doing an action.
He's saying this is really...
Kisem is a joke. It's a hacker because it's not doing anything.
It's so insignificant.
I agree.
But
I
if
mean,
it's colder and it's
it's not as a hacker. If Rabbi Cohn is explaining,
It's a standard.
it would be good. Would be good.
The racks don't burn.
I agree. So I'm saying, if you're using the smart Rabbi Cohn, that just like if you had a little kisem, if I had a big one, I bet it would go quicker. So if I'm stirring up the coals, even though I'm not doing it, that would also be good.
It depends how well we really don't stir coals, but it could be that just moving around is not going to help. Same.
You have to know what the getter factor is.
So Yossi's a good answer, which makes me happy because it's bothered me very much. I couldn't understand it,
Okay.
and I couldn't get what they were trying to. Yossi's trying to be mandated that just make a point that do your chitui in a way that at least has the appearance of you trying to do something to improve the cooking. Even though Lamaisa you did such a small amount that it didn't have any practical application. Okay, I'm happy to hear that.
That's what he says, though. He says that it helps, though. He says that, well.
Yoel l'sakin ha'esh, so he's saying that means it improves the fire. Rather, it's on the top.
Yoel, by Yoel Moshe.
V'yoel l'maher b'shula b'yad Yisroel. Okay, so he's going to say that means it's the type of thing that could help the cooking. You did just so small that it didn't really help.
Doesn't
but at
have
least it's in that context. He's like, it is simple. Let's see to a rockin'. Let's see to a rockin'.
No one
That would be
will hold that
silly
up
if you
with
put
it.
to a rockin'. So okay, that's
So there's no difference between the Rush and the Rambam, according to
no, there is. Of course there is, because the rush holds when you throw something in, you have to really make it cook
Well,
better.
according to Sosha, to really make
So
it
that's what I'm asking is that he sure sounds like he's saying the rush.
Rush significantly improves the fire.
Yeah, the rush is clear. No, the rush is clear.
The example that the rush
I
uses,
understand, but I'm saying,
the rush, the example that he uses is from a Gemara, which is not really about this, but a Gemara that says it would have cooked in 2 hours, now cooks in 1 hour. It must give like a dramatic. Right. Okay, so it's a good answer. I have to tell you something. The Gemara says on these dinim, the way we're understanding it, he said he's medayik on the words v'nir ha'esh ma'at. Okay, the Mechaber says ma'at, and then he says it's only for a hecker. Okay, he picks up on those diyukim, which is of course what the Mechaber is trying to say. We know what he's trying to say, that this is going like Taisus, and means this because you don't have to help. Now Taisus said that it's dafka shemakarat b'shula.
Got it.
If you're not makarat b'shula, it doesn't have to do anything with the cooking. We're not going not like that Taisus, which is the way we understand. Okay, so Yossi is making me feel a little bit better. Okay, but anyhow. I mean, I don't know how to say that they really hold, I can't say that the Shach and Taz really hold that you have to help the cooking.
Right.
So Yossi trying to give me an answer, otherwise I'm lost. Okay. Now we move from what we did, so to speak, in the din, to something more Lamaisa,
Right.
okay, which we've all heard about, which is one possible practical application of these things, which is letting a yid light light bulb and a glow plug and things like that, which is like this. Many years ago, the idea first came, as far as we know, from Rabbi Heinemann, who said that we're trying to make a hecker that the yid was involved. So he said, it's hard to sometimes make bishul pasi shol in the company. So what we do is let the yid. There are things that burn for a very long time. The yid will light them. So at first, I think the example was a light bulb. An incandescent light bulb gives off heat. So the yid will light a light bulb, or a more modern version is to put a glow plug. Okay, which is meant to burn for years and years. They just go on forever. Or a little flame. That's even later a variation of it, actually like a little pilot, so to speak, but a little flame in the oven. The yid will light that. That'll be set to burn forever. Okay, it'll just sit and burn for however long. And once the yid lit that, now the yid that's his kisem. It's a long burning kisem, and it'll last forever. Even if they turn the ovens off, the food will stay. The things that'll be baked in there will be considered b'shul Yisrael. Okay, b'shul Pasuk.
Question.
Yeah.
All these examples of kisem and putting it in is in the actual fire itself.
Mm-hmm.
This is an outside source.
So,
I'm
we've
just,
heard this before.
I'm getting there. We're getting there.
I haven't been involved with
Okay,
this
we're
in a
getting
while. I'm just
So the over.
He's starting with me today. You know what?
We came up. There are 5 reasons why people that I could count here. 5 reasons why people didn't like this idea. 5 that I could count. Well, maybe there's more. Okay, you'll see how you count it. Okay, the first 2 are sort of like a little lighter. Okay, which is the first one is the idea of a hecker is that we say that a yid is supposed to be involved in the cooking to avoid Kashrus. Okay, so it's an oxymoron to say that I can make a hecker that lasts forever. Okay, the whole point of a hecker is that you can't make food for me without my participation. Participation. I have to be part of the cooking. Could it be that I could do something that for the next 5,000 years someone said, let someone flip the switch in the power company, and now for the whole city will be positive. Can it be such a thing? You're missing the point. The point is that it has to participate. So if we say, let's say we have a company and we say, every once a month the Mashiach comes and lights a fire. So it's like an ongoing thing that the Yid's participation is involved in the cooking. You can't cook without me. But to do it once forever, people said you can't do that.
You know what
Emir
Torah's
Hashem-
Haspalter here? It doesn't make a difference.
Emir Hashem in Halacha Yud, that's a possible way to get around. In Halacha Yud, Emir Hashem will talk about that. Okay, this comes up in the Ramah of Halacha Yud. Emir Hashem gets at it. Okay. Okay, another thing. Now this is an unusual way, another way of looking at it. It says if you like the light bulb, this was a light bulb type. If you like the light bulb, well, the power company doesn't always get their energy from the same places. So today they're getting from this power company, from this power plant, and tomorrow from that power plant. So your action, which was to draw energy from that power plant to the light bulb, expires. As soon as they switch over to that power plant and they turn that one down, your energy is okay. I don't know if we need to answer that question. Okay. Let's get to the more, the ones more used to. What?
Any electric oven.
Every what?
Any electric oven that you keep.
Could have it, you're saying even if I turn on the oven completely, forget about my light bulb. They might switch it. Okay. You make it worse.
Okay,
We'll just put that one on the side. Ignore that one for now. Okay. Now, Rabbi Schechter said something that people are more familiar with. Yankee mentioned before, that it's only. I'm sorry. Before I continue, the 5 svaras that we're going to say, to my knowledge, I didn't see that any of the people who bring these svaras as bringing a riot to any of these svaras. Okay, you'll see that not each one of them has a logic to what they're going to say. I didn't see many riots flying around. This is more like Rabbi Schechter says that the kisem that the yid has to puts in goes into the fire. If the yid would have do something that's not part of the main cooking fire, that doesn't work. That's a Yankee say. So so to speak, if the yid would like kisem and put it next to the goy's fire, that wouldn't be anything. You have to put it into it has to be part of the main fire. Okay? A lot of people accepted this idea. Rabbi Schechter says that they sent the shot to Rabbi Yashiv, and Rabbi Yashiv agreed to this point, okay, that it has to be part of the main fire. And therefore, lots of people therefore will not be sent on the light bulb per se, because that can't be part of the fire, but would rather move towards like a glow plug or a real flame, because those can be built into the oven. Those can be put right into the middle of the whole ovens. In one tunnel, in one bakery that we know about, they have it. There's 50 banks of flames for cooking, and one of them stays on all the time. Okay, it's one of the many flames.
That's what this time was. Mamash has to be part of that fire. Be chad with the fire.
Well, if you would say that,
no, there's a 90. All these flames say you better have another one there. That's no good because it's not part of it.
Okay, so, if you were to say that would the extreme of that would be to say is that you could only do it in the kind of fire that they had. That was one big huge flame. When we have 95 individual flames, every one of them is.
We don't have that.
Right.
I don't think he's saying to that extreme.
I don't understand the difference. Then the significance, light bulb. That's what's it? The amount of feet.
This is part of the cooking. Well, this is like part of what's being used to cook, and that's not. What you're saying is what behind me would argue on it. Is they're all getting heat. So the oven has, however you measure heat, it has this much heat in it, now has a little more heat in it. That's what he would say. And Rabbi Schechter says, this is the part where the cooking is done, and that, it's sort of like obvious that that's not part of the cooking process. Okay, there's no firm, way to say it. Okay. A lot of people accepted that part of it and don't like the light bulb per se, but like the other variations of it. Okay? Okay, so you don't really mean that. You don't really think that if you threw a kisem and missed the fire, that would help. But the fire's over here.
Well, I mean, it depends on...
No, maybe not.
So what would happen if the fire's over here and I hit the Kisem and landed over here?
And it had no shackles in the fire?
Right. Well, he's saying if it
wouldn't work.
It didn't burn.
It wouldn't work.
Oh, so you think that if it's in the tanner, it'll catch eventually, and it'll somehow happen? Okay. You think so? That makes it imply that if any place is good enough.
Yeah.
I thought you had to that you have to throw it into the fire.
No,
He's saying
don't
that
say
it
that.
does
Doesn't
not.
say that.
It's a
No, it says
It's a
no,
different
tanner.
I think most people just read that the word tanner is just a variation of the word. It's just a way of saying H. It's just a very. But that's a point. Maybe that's a
Good, nice point.
Okay.
Okay.
I was told. Now, David Abraham is not here to the time now, but he told me two things. And one of them is that Rabbi Auerbach told him that the centers went to ask the Shaila to Rabbi Yisroel Yaakov Fisher from Ada, and he told them that you could use something as long as the thing was a type of instrument that was used really for heat. That is to say, a glow plug is there to give off heat. What does it do? You put a glow plug into a boiler so that when you want to light up your fire, the glow plug is on.
So what's a glow
There's a lot of
plug?
heat.
Sorry.
What?
I don't know.
Okay, a glow plug it's a piece of metal or ceramic which has electricity flowing through it, and it glows red hot. Okay, and it can stay on for, they read it for like 10,000 hours. And what you do is, if you want to light up your boiler, you want to light up your oven, instead of a pilot, it's like a
They
pilot.
have utilized. There's no...
Could be, I don't know
You have
what
an
they have.
electronic ignition oven?
Yeah. No, I know it has. They have these little rods in there.
Yeah, and they're just burning red hot all the time.
They weren't glowing, but they were hot.
Okay,
Well,
same thing. Okay,
so the colorblind.
So he said, as long as if the thing is made for heat, then that counts. So therefore, a glow plug. There are cases where a glow plug or the flame that burns all the time. Those are fine. But light bulbs are not meant for giving off heat. They do give off heat. Incandescent light bulbs do give off heat, but they're meant for light. They're not meant for heat, and therefore they don't count. I'm not sure we source this is, but that's what he said. It has to be something that was meant for heat rather than something that's just meant for light. Okay, and the last argument on it is that Rebelsky's argument. Okay? He has a different one. He says that when we say that the Yid can make a hecker in the Goy's fire, that means to say that there is a fire, the Goy has a fire, and the Yid makes a hecker. That fire is no good until I do something, now it becomes good. He said, doesn't make sense to him that you could make the hecker first and then make a fire afterwards. Because he says, really, the way you're doing it is, forget about the first time you do it. You light the glow plug, and the oven's off. And then the guy builds his fire around, so to speak, around your glow plug. Okay? He didn't take your glow plug and make a big flame out of it. You have your hecker standing there, and he builds a fire next to it. Okay? He's not using it, he's just making it next to it. He says, how could you make the hecker
Prior to the fire.
before the fire exists? The fire has to predate the hecker. First you have to have the fire.
Okay.
Now, in that fire, I did something to make the fire. Now this fire is a Yid's fire. I can't make the hecker first, have it look like a permanent hecker, okay, and then that hecker should, now we say, whatever you do around there should be a Yid, should belong to a Yid. Okay?
Why isn't the glow plug considered a fire?
Oh, it is a fire.
So what are you saying?
So the Yid, this you're not cooking with a glow plug. You're cooking with this big flame in the oven. So if you would build your fire around the glow plug, I mean you would take the glow plug and throw things on top of it until it bursts into flames, that would be fine.
Well, you know, a glow plug only works when you inject a fuel. You don't inject fire. You inject a fuel. In other words, if you put the gas that comes out of your oven, if you inject it into a edifice that has a glow plug, it and it's
Based on electronic.
No, we're not over here. He's not talking about that you are going to make flame out of the glow plug. You just have a lit glow plug sitting next to lots of flames that are on. Not that the flame passes the glow plug to light up. Now you're thinking
That's
an
what
oven.
the glow plug is.
Right, but they're not using the glow plug in the traditional way. They're putting the glow plug, they're just turning it on, they're just turning it on in an oven, just sitting there in the corner, just sitting on the side of the oven, just so that the Yid could have given a little heat to the oven. Just so that he'd give it.
Heat or
for
to start the fire?
No, not to start fire, just for a little heat. Just to add a little heat to the fire. Okay. So Rabbi Belsky's idea is you can't make your hecker before you make your fire.
So
You
what
don't
does
make
he
the fire.
expect you to do?
So he
Have
says,
the fire and then put it in?
So all the sheep, as we said, everyone until now who had complaints, basically, didn't like the light bulb per se, but were willing to work with the glow plug or the fire that's on all the time, if you did it right. But within reason, you could use those other ones. Rabbi Belsky, as far as going to say, you can't use any of these. There's no way you can use anything if the hecker is there first.
What happens if you have the fire out and they put the hecker in there?
If you have the fire on and then you put
Yeah.
that would be fine, but you're missing the benefit. Rabbi Heinemann's point here is that I like the...
Well, you don't hear what I'm saying. You got a company comes to you.
Okay.
The thing's running,
Okay.
and the fire's there, and it's warm, hot.
Okay.
And they insert this glow bar in.
Right.
Is that okay? Go ahead.
So for today's cooking, it's fine. But tonight, when they turn their oven off, you say, but my hecker
So I
stays
hear
on.
you. That's
come on,
the- turns off.
but the benefit is not for today.
I got it.
Rabbi Heinemann's benefit was for the future.
For everything. Okay.
So Rabbi Schechter has like a in-between. He thinks that, or Rabbi Belsky said, you shouldn't do it. And he has a possible raya from the Mechaber in Halacha Yud that maybe we'll see when we get there. He has a possible raya that maybe the Mechaber says that a Lui is mutter. That against Rabbi Belsky. Okay, a potential raya from
The
Halacha
OU policy is not used.
So the OU Lamaisa does not, because Rabbi Belsky does not use any of these kind of ideas,
Well,
these suggestions.
yeah.
Okay, the CRC and most of the other Hashlachas rely on it with the details we said before. Most of them don't go as extreme, so to speak, as to take the light bulb, but they will take the middle ones, which is the glow plugs and the fires, as long as they're part of the flames and things like that.
Involved with it.
And I'll mention the other thing David told me, that he sent, you may know, he sent a written shaila to Rav Vosner's Bezdin, asking them what they think about this. And they told him back that he's been asked the shaila many times, and he says, David asked about a glow plug and a flame. He didn't ask about the light bulb. He asked, I guess he's not that much chutzpah. He asked the simpler ones to understand. And he said that even though there might be makom lahachmer, but he holds that minat din it's mutter. And in fact, we don't do it because of that, but we in fact do that. That we use those under the right ways as a
He has that in writing.